Okay, I think we're okay.
I'm so glad I have family.
This stand is a pain in the ass. Oh, sorry. Okay,
Are we still sideways?
we're fine. Okay, in 3 minutes you start. Can you hear clearly? Fran Rosenberg is watching.
Good. Hi, Fran.
Greg is watching.
Hi, Greg.
Eileen says hi.
Hi.
And Eileen says you're good. We finally got this right.
Oh, thank goodness.
Can you folks hear her clearly? Good audio. Thank you, Eileen.
Okay, and we still have 2 minutes. Shall we sing?
We could sing.
Let
Greg
me.
says hi.
Hi. Let me begin.
So we are good.
And we'll be excellent in 2 minutes.
Stephanie Michelle Burgos is watching.
Hi.
You had 40-something people watching. I hope I didn't lose them.
Hello, my 47 people watching. You may all critique me eventually. You know, the way when we work here, you don't have to tell me 2 minutes or 5 minutes. The clock is right there. It is now 6:59.
Stephanie says, hi, Hedy. Love you.
I love you too. Okay, the time is here. Okay, welcome everybody first of all. And I really mean it. Because it's a cold, cold night outside. And it's gonna stay cold. And it's icy. Okay, so let me begin and show you a warm drawing. This is Janine. Is it sideways?
No, it's beautiful.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Janine is this miracle person whom I inherited when my son married Greg, and she is an in-law, and I'm her in-law. Mutually, we are mothers-in-law, but we also discovered a lot about friendship through each other. We both love writing and both have a lot to say. Okay? And she's quite wonderful. If you can be friends with in-laws, you're lucky. And we are with each other. Today is going to be different. We're going to begin with the painting. And then I'm going to talk. The painting is the one after Galashof's is Orchard Street. Again, as it'll be for a long time, it'll be my Orchard Street. And thank you, Joni. I'm going to be more organized every day, but I'm not there yet. As you know, Eric and I had a picture framing, an art gallery, and one of the salesmen saw me painting Orchard Street, and he said he would like to have a painting of Orchard Street because he was a salesman there for a long time, and what he loved were the signs, the many, many signs. And so he and his wife met me on Orchard Street. They did not want to be in the painting. They wanted it to be of the signs of Orchard Street. So here you go. It is on your board. Jessie put it on my board. And we were not good photographers. So later on we had them done professionally, but you're at the beginning of my life in Orchard Street. They agreed that they wanted as many signs and billboards as possible, and this street was filled with them. Red signs, yellow signs, sounds on paper, on buildings, and on leaflets with advertisements. Then we picked an angle where they all dominated the painting. The signs changed often. When I began to paint the first canvas in 1973, most of the stores were owned by Jewish people who had been born on the Lower East Side, who were a part of its past. But a gradual change was taking place. Korean immigrants were selling wigs, and food stores changed the wares. Slowly the old Orchard Street changed its culture, and I marveled at how peacefully it took place. I want to speak a little bit about that world because it'll never come back. When we change cultures now, people allow themselves to speak. At this time is a time of great changes, where people who come here don't try to change it, but their children do it. And I want to read to you my return to Orchard Street. Not Orchard Street, but to New York, because it's New York that I love so much. Today I'm going to tell you of my return to New York. It wasn't Orchard Street, but it was an area that I've gone to so often before, and it changed completely. Today I have to tell you why I love New York. I'm sure that you have realized, because of my paintings, that they are a hymn to that city and the people who form it. But because of COVID-19, the New York quarantine, and my being less strong and no longer able to drive, I have not been in New York for much too long. But I was given an appointment at the Jacob Javits Center in order to get the vaccine against the virus on February 4th, which was this week, the beginning of this week. I was so excited. My daughter drove me there, and the trip itself was such joy. For years of doing my sketches and paintings, that trip had become commonplace. But now it was an adventure beyond compare. The highway was the same. Traffic, however, was much less because few of us now leave home or drive. One of the virus results is less pollution and less crowded streets. But when we neared the city, where was the New York of my past? Near the Jacob Javits Center, nothing looked as it used to. Huge walls of skyscrapers towered in the streets. I know that had not been in that area for me for the last 5 years. But how and why there were so many buildings of mirrored glass. Many were still halfway constructed, and we watched the elevators filled with workers and materials zooming up and down in the sky. We parked in a parking lot because huge walls of snow stopped street parking. I have a wonderful four-wheeler with a seat. It's a walker. We're a lot of years older than I was when I drew in the painting. We were a few blocks away. The sun was shining, and after so much time, I could walk in my New York City streets again, even though it was with a walker. When we got to the center, it was huge and wonderful as ever, but the doors were wide open. By the way, all of this is posted on my wall, so if you don't get certain words, don't worry, they're there. The center was as huge and wonderful as ever, but the doors were wide open. They'd never been wide open before. I'd always seen it with easy to open closed doors before. A policeman was across the street making sure that we obeyed the lights, and we crossed easily. There were so few of us crossing. I had been told that there were very few people. About the lockdown is emptying the streets. But it seemed unreal. We walked in. It was eerie. It was so empty. But Army reserves were waiting to give advice and help. Joni,
National Guard.
National Guard. Okay. It's good to have Joni. She remembers things better. We were sent into the correct direction. The building, which before had always been filled with current exhibits, was an empty cavern. Then we saw rows of spaced chairs, correctly spaced apart, and people getting the vaccinations. The Army personnel, no, Joni.
National Guard.
The National Guard led us to a rest area, where this group, so when you see it on the wall, imagine Joni saying, no, it's the Army Reserve.
National Guard.
National Guard. At 91, I can forget things. When this group was done, each chair and each table were wiped down carefully, and then it was my turn to be vaccinated. Everyone was unhurried, and we were so impressed. One memory overshadows everything. In front of the restrooms, there was a sink and a small table, upon which stood a large bottle of hand sanitizer and a roll of paper towels. And suddenly a pigeon swooped in and ended up in the sink. There must have been water of some kind there, because it seemed to be drinking. I hope it wasn't the sanitizer. After a while, the bird flew away. We mentioned it to a nearby attendant afterwards. Oh, yes, she said, that's Clarence. We call him Clarence. You see, now that the doors are open, the pigeons feel it's their place. But Clarence always goes to the sink. How this changes New York in its own way made me so happy. I had heard so much about the confusion caused by not enough organization left by the outgoing group. Well, whoever is taking care of it now is amazing. The organization was fabulous. Everything was labeled. And the reserve.
National Guard.
National Guard. Okay, I should write it down. Here I wrote the reserve. The National Guard was perfect and polite. And I want to give credit how everything was only handled a few days after the crisis, when there were not enough vaccinations. It was a wonderful New York City triumph, and I'm so proud of the people who are now in charge. We drove home and we felt the enormous need to celebrate. We needed to, but outdoor eating in a snow-covered city did not exist. We would wait until we came home. And we drove part way until we realized we really needed to celebrate. And we couldn't wait. And Joni said there was a McDonald's just before our highway exit, or entrance, and the French fries would still be hot when we took them home. So we ordered, picked the bag up, and realized we could not wait. We celebrated, eating and singing loudly in the car. It was a wonderful ending to a wonderful day. Now comes something very important.
Should I read who's on and the notes people have?
I'd love it. I'd love it.
So Rona Rosenberg-Freiser says, great seeing you. We too got our first vaccination. Denise Genevieve Taylor is watching. Hernan Poza is watching. Julie Williams says, so happy that you got the vaccine. and sends kisses. Kathy Olson said, happy to be with you, my dear Hedy. We too were at the Javits Center for our COVID vaccine February 5th, the next day. Hardev Mangat is watching. Julie Williams, Paula Lakshan. Greg Giagano said, so happy I finally caught one of these.
I'm so glad.
Meredith Romer is watching. Janine Schultz is watching. Joe Tripp. Eileen Cutler, as you know. Elena Taylor. Sandy Alzak says, hi, Aunt Hedy, love you.
I
Kenny
love you.
says, woohoo. Stephanie Michelle Burgos sends her love. Greg is here, and I think that is, and Fran Rosenberg is the first
Okay.
one. So that's your crew.
Okay, now you're getting to work. Joni, show this to people, and then I will read it. Because, let me see the time. Oh, we're doing great.
Okay.
Okay, and then I'll tell what the writing is.
Okay, I'm giving it to you.
Yes. Okay. This comes through my teaching in the prison system, which shaped my life more than anything else. I've mentioned the name Mickey Berglass before. In the papers that he gave us, this exists. And we are at a moment now when I think we need this more than ever, because all that we once had, we don't have. I had been so happy a few weeks ago when I could take my walker and go anywhere within the walking distance. Because don't forget, I'm 91. And now the world is closed because of the snowstorm. I can go just so far before there's a sheet of ice. I have the most wonderful neighbors in the world. They take care of me, and they have a snowblower. But it stops me, the snow does stop me from a distance. And so, like you, each of us is having to give up certain things. And when you teach in prison, you're teaching to people who cannot go out with a walker, because our first teaching was at Sing Sing. And this is so appropriate. I'll tell you what they say to each other. Let me just put my glasses on. It says, life in hell. And these two are sitting next to each other. And one says, hey, Akbar, what say we mosey across the street for a little ice cream cone? But Jeff, what about our diets? You're right. I'm so ashamed. I don't really want an ice cream cone. What do I want? I want my life to have meaning. I want an end to suffering in the world. I want to accomplish great things. I want to be rich and famous. I want to stay young. I want to see my dead friends and family again. I want to live forever. I want to be happy. I want my parents' approval. I want you to know how much I love you and how I'm sorry I never had the nerve to tell you before. And then they look at each other. And the last picture, I would like to only to show you the last picture.
Them eating the ice cream cones.
Yes. How much time do we have?
You have 15 minutes.
I want to talk about that first because I wanted to tell you what I think about people and why I love my life so much. My parents never forced me into anything. When you are born, you come into a world, and now I don't need my glasses. When you're born, you come into a world where there are no rule books, where you know absolutely nothing, and your only rule books are the people around you. Mickey Berglass said that you do not know anything. The minute you begin to judge, you lose, because you don't know the past. What are you teaching your children? Are you teaching them to be afraid of people? My parents did not tell me that. But then Hitler came, and I knew that things changed because we're Jewish. And my world changed drastically. I couldn't play in the street. I had to be afraid of people. And I began to think, but I don't know people to be afraid of. The people I knew were always friendly. And it must be because they don't know me. And I would have to make people know me. And I need to make you know people, and that is why I do the painting I do. I need you to know who the people in the world are. Because, as in this painting, you were taught to be afraid. When I sit in street corners, I'm not threatening, and people speak to me. I need to teach you who these people are, because otherwise, maybe someday the world will give up on us. It already has. This virus makes us hate each other more. We wear masks now. I wear masks so that you don't have to be afraid of me. Is it possible for us to obey the rules, but banish the rules which tell us to judge others? I have 10 minutes left. I would like to ask all of you to do something. Sit down one day, if possible tonight, and begin to write down the things you have hidden from the world. We don't speak when we are hurt. Who do we speak to? To ourselves. But don't speak of who you are today. Write down what parts of you hide. Those are the best parts of you. It's why I stopped teaching drawing in prison, when the only people I began to get were young addicts. Addiction means that you hide the parts of you that make you interesting. Sit down and do this. Write down. Go back into your past and say, what do you hide? And why do you hide it? We all hide ourselves because we think who we are is not accepted. And it isn't in the wrong places and the wrong times. Part of learning is to learn when. What Eric, my husband, did when he was in concentration camp, he learned survival by speaking to guards. And he would ask any question, But from the way they answered, he knew if they were dangerous or not. He made friends in the ghetto. The ghetto was a mini concentration camp where you could die, but you weren't being killed. And he would ask questions. And from the tone of voice, he made a friend with one of the guards, who Eric could speak Lithuanian, but he was brought up German. So he had two languages, and the ghetto was in Lithuania. And he ended up taking one of the guards to the black market, because that guard was from Vienna, and the people in Vienna were also starving. War is not a friendly thing for the families of the soldiers who are staying home. And Eric survived because he asked questions, and he insisted that people knew who he was. In the concentration camp, all the men were called Isaac, and all the women were called Sarah, in order to take away the feeling of being a person. And in a way, you do it to yourself when you hide. As you write, become aware of what you don't show people. Because when you show it, you've been wounded for too long. Take a risk, but let the risk be after you've asked the question. Rediscover yourself. That's the gift you can give me. I don't want to see it. I want you to see it. You are the important one. We lose you when you don't become who you are. Can you think about it? Speak. Because what we do when we finally do speak, we create wounds in other people. And you know what it is to have wounds. Speak to people. And if they hurt you, try if you could say, "This hurts me." Could you not? Or learn how to keep quiet, but to write it down. You know what Janine and I do? We write to each other, and we don't show it to each other. But we write down what hurts to ourselves. I love you all.
Let me read the last notes, okay?
I'd love it.
So, Carol Hodkin is watching.
Yes.
Bob Policastro is watching. Christina Grabber said, "Such a lovely moment to get to meet the pigeon, Clarence." Hardev Margot says, "Hedy, you are great. Your paintings are marvelous." Kenny says, "I love that cartoon so much. Thank you for sharing." And Julie said, "I'd forgotten all about Life in Hell. Such a great cartoon script." And then Kathy Olson says, "When COVID is over, we will share the biggest ice cream cones."
Yes.
And Robin Millman Muse is watching. And Jessie says, "That smile. Love you," with a big heart. And Hernan says, "Much love from Hernan and Christopher."
Do you all realize the miracle of technology? And because one of the greatest things that happened to me was getting in touch with Kent in Sweden, who is an incredible photographer. And this happened because somebody saw a photograph which he took 40 years ago.
Where you are gorgeous as you're painting the plaza.
Yes. It made me feel good to see that I used to look different once. I had more hair, and miracles happen through technology. Let's use them. Let's get to know each other. Not only do I know Kent now, but I saw a picture of his wife. And someday, when this virus is over, and he and his wife come to New York, we'll do a session on that. A Facebook session. Thank you. I love you all so much. Even if I don't have the choice of giving you a hug. This is a viral one.
Viral may not be the right word.
What's virtual?
Virtual. Viral is like COVID. Carrie Sherman Sanchez is watching also.
Who is?
Carrie Sherman Sanchez.
Wonderful. Thank you. I love you all.
And Stephanie Michelle Burgos sends you a virtual hug. And so does Julie. Thanks, Paige family. Love you. Tammy Smith says, hi, Hedy. There are lots of hearts floating. And Janine sends love.
Thank you.